India has given so many gifts to the United States. Recently, we've given the gift of yoga, which has become very popular, and ideas of meditation, which are being now incorporated into neurosciences and cognitive sciences. A lot of research at MIT and Stanford and National Institute of Mental Health, Harvard, that I've been tracking for the last 15 years, is at the cutting edge of mental health and neuroscience. And it's done by studying yogis. It's done by studying Tibetan meditators. They're basically practicing Indian traditions that were migrated to Tibet. So we are giving this gift to the sciences also. A whole lot of science of consciousness studies is related to quantum physics. And so that also is an influence that we've brought. Vegetarianism is becoming popular. People are realizing for health reasons. We realize it more than just for our health, we realize it for the health of the cosmos, because our dharma is not only for me as a person and my family, but also for community, for society, for the Mother Earth. So our dharma goes across all of these. And these ideas that the nature is sacred are new ideas in this culture. In the 1960s, there was a whole movement of Westerners going to India, the hippies, the New Age movement, and they brought back many of these ideas and they become part of American mainstream. So I'm writing books to explain to our young people that a lot of things which are called Western civilization have their origins in Indian civilization. But the journey from India to the West is sometimes erased. So it is considered to be part of Western civilization, but actually it is originated in Indian civilization. Things not only in the life sciences, but also medicine. A historian in Dartmouth, Massachusetts, is an expert on Portuguese history. And he went to Goa, which used to be a Portuguese colony. It's part of India, it's a state in India now. And he got a lot of the archives of Portuguese trade in Goa. And what he found is that the whole Portuguese Empire was based on bringing medicinal plants from India into Portugal and re-exporting it throughout Europe. Portugal was taking Indian medicinal plants and making a big world business out of it. That was how a huge amount of money was created. So, and then later on, a lot of these plants got domesticated in Europe, and they started growing it, and that's how Indian knowledge expanded here. If you read some of the Arab writings, 1,000 years old from now, 1,000 years ago, you'll find that many of the doctors, many of these writings talk about some of their hospitals having Indian doctors, their astronomers, mathematicians coming from India. So us being India's export of knowledge workers to America and the rest of the world is not something happening for the first time. Indian knowledge workers were going to the Middle East long ago. China was importing many Indian scholars and thinkers, heads of major universities used to come from India. So India has been an exporter of knowledge, and places like Nalanda University in Bihar, places like Takshila, which is near Islamabad, and many other such universities were like Harvard is today or MIT is today. So people from all parts of the world would come there to study, bring the knowledge back to their countries. So we have been exporters of knowledge workers peacefully, never with an army going and imposing it on somebody, doing it violently, trying to appoint governors and extract taxes out of them, or converting them, or trying to change their sense of history, but always in a very friendly way, where people are invited, they can come, learn what they want, and take it back, this sort of thing. So, and no idea of patent and copyright and trademark that, this is, we have to pay us royalty. So people will come, take a whole lot of knowledge from India very easily and freely. So when you think of how we are different, what is our identity, it's important to understand our history properly. So you can talk about these things. And if you feel that someone's putting you down, you should have plenty of arguments to give back, plenty of information to give back. And that is what my research is trying to do. Yeah? I'm trying to find out these things, authenticate them in a very rigorous way, and explain them in a simple way so people can understand who we really are. India's contributions to mathematics. India's contributions to mathematics are huge. A lot of the modern mathematics that came out from Newton and Descartes, a few hundred years ago, if you look at the Kerala mathematics and various schools of mathematics within India, centuries before the Europeans had similar ideas, these existed in India. Many of you at some stage will come across, in geometry, you will come across something called the Pythagoras theorem. Pythagoras theorem, you come across that in geometry. Now it is well established by historians of India and Western historians that it is really Baudhanya in India who developed this theorem centuries before Pythagoras. And not only this particular theorem, but a lot more than this particular theorem. So it is really Baudhanya's theorem, not Pythagoras' theorem. And your teacher probably would know if you said this. And if you showed them some sources and proved it, it might surprise them. So you should learn these things and have a sense of pride in your heritage and not let people sort of intimidate you into giving up your sense of who you are, because there's a lot of great things about the culture. In the 1800s, every European university was starting a huge Sanskrit department, Indology department. From 1800 onwards for 50 to 75 years, they actually downsized Latin and Greek departments and used that money to bring Sanskrit people, because they found that they could discover so much out of Sanskrit. Linguistics, modern linguistics in Europe was a very archaic field, not very sophisticated, until they discovered Panini's grammar. Panini is a great grammarian of Sanskrit. And so for a good 100 years, in every Western university, in every European university, it was a requirement, if you want to study linguistics, you have to first study Sanskrit and understand Panini's grammar, and then you could get a PhD in linguistics. This is very interesting. And then based on a study of Panini's grammar, they developed, along the same models, they developed linguistics and grammars of various European languages. And then of course they downsized and phased out so much study of Sanskrit because they thought they gained the knowledge from it. So modern linguistics came out of the study of Sanskrit. So there's a very large number of fields of knowledge, and I'm writing many other volumes talking about different disciplines in the West that have had a lot of influence from Indian thought. And even religion. You might find this a little interesting, but actually one of the books I'm writing is on Hindu and Buddhist influences on modern Christianity. And I'm writing this with the help of Christian theologians. Christian theologians who are very fascinated by this. They understand it, they recognize it, they appreciate it, but this information is scattered. It has not been put together in one place, which is what I'm going to do. Many Christian thinkers studied Vedanta, studied Vedas and Upanishads, studied Gita, translated these, and then they had debates with other Christians. So one group of Christians who were sort of really Vedanta oriented, debating the old style Orthodox Christian thinker, arguing within Christianity. And then over a period of time, some of these ideas would get crossed over and assimilated. So for instance, one of the greatest theologians in Christianity in the 20th century was a man called Teilhard de Chardin. And Teilhard de Chardin, in his he went to India and he studied Vedanta, he studied Shankara, Ramanuja, Madhavacharya. He studied these, and in his diaries he writes comments and interpretations and tries to compare it with Christianity. And he's having arguments with Christian theologians because he's influenced by all these Indian ideas. So, where it says Sagun Brahman, which means Brahman manifested as the world, as distinct from Nirgun Brahman, which is the Brahman that is transcendent, without qualities. Sagun Brahman is the Brahman with form. So he translates that as, and says it equals body of Christ. So the phrase body of Christ is coined after the idea of Sagun Brahman. And it enters Christian thought ever since. Body of Christ. The world is body of Christ. Sagun Brahman. So it's a very interesting thing to go back to on these origins. So in one book, what I'm going to do is I have, since I have come across dozens of these thinkers, I'm picking 10 very important Christian thinkers and a chapter on each on how they study Hinduism, Buddhism, how they like certain things, didn't like some things, then they had arguments with other Christians, then they are trying to bring some of these ideas into Christianity to reinterpret, and so on. Most recently, a very, very eminent Jesuit theologian called Ramon Panikkar. Ramon Panikkar was a great, his mother was Spanish Christian, and his father was Sri Lankan Hindu Brahmin, and so he was raised as a Christian and a theologian, and he was always studying both faiths. He was studying the Hindu faith and he was studying the Christian faith. But as a Christian member of the church, he was trying to figure out how much of the Hindu can be brought into Christianity. He just died a few years ago in his 90s, and New York Times had a front page obituary. He's such an important figure. But his whole life is basically learning and assimilating and digesting from Hindu thought into Christianity. So, my purpose in writing these books is to bring out the Indian contributions, the dharmic contributions to the modern world, to American society, to Western society, to show that a renaissance of this civilization is not only for Indians' benefit, and is not for nostalgia, it is not to show off, it is not chauvinism, but there is something genuine, there is some knowledge there that is of relevance. One of the projects that many of you young kids will be getting into, one of the ideas that your schools will be teaching you, will be this idea of sustainability. Sustainability, because if we keep consuming things very rapidly, the raw material of the world will finish. So how to make the environment more sustainable, and how to recycle things, and how to consume less. So a whole lot of sustainability studies are going on in the Western school systems and in colleges and so on. So now I'm finding that many of these ideas actually have Indian origins, and many more contributions from the dharmic system can be brought into sustainability studies. The idea that you live a simple life which makes you contented with less material things, and you don't go constantly chasing after more material things to keep you happy. This is a very important idea in sustainability, because people are worried that with such a huge population of the world, if everybody wants to be driving gas guzzlers and everybody wants to consume a whole lot of paper products and other kinds of products, then we're going to run out of raw material, and this overpopulated world will not be sustainable. So if you look at the Indian traditional lifestyle of finding anand, finding bliss without necessarily material obsessions, it's a very important aspect of sustainability. If you look at our ashram system, where you are a student, you live a very simple life as a student, you don't go around consuming a whole lot, you're not chasing every latest gadget. Then when you are in grihast, you enjoy the good life. There is a grihast, you can have a material well-being and success and all of that. And then you go to Vanaprastha, when you are more interested in helping society, helping others, and you downsize your own level of consumption. And then you go to sannyas, and you are even less consumerist. So there are many such ideas of our tradition that are relevant today. I'll wrap up by saying that the book, being different, goes into these ideas and explains how we are different from Western civilization and what that means to the world today. Thank you very much. I'll be happy